The one thing you say about a myth is that there's some truth in there, no matter how bizarre they may seem. And the one that I had always heard that seemed like just a child's wish was the one about black people, black slaves, who came to the United States. And under certain circumstances, they would fly.
Hello everyone, my name is Joshua Bennett. I'm a poet and professor of literature at MIT. I'm also the author of The People Can Fly, American Promise, Black Prodigies, and the Greatest Miracle of All Time. And I'm just going to share a couple of quick points, 5 of them to be exact, that are takeaways for someone who's approaching the book for the first time. So these are 5 insights from The People Can Fly. 1, that our gifts require something from us, and that what we have in order to give away. I'm putting this forward in the book as a kind of universal claim that emerges from a very specific sense of inheritance from my literary and political tradition, as well as my family culture. I was raised by and around educators and artists, and there was always this sense in those environments that any talent we had was bestowed upon us in some divine, cosmic sense, and thus required that we make the world a better place with it. The book opens with this scene of me at 4 years old, improvising a sermon when we got home from Sunday morning service at Messiah Baptist Church in Yonkers, New York, where I grew up. And part of why I open with that scene is not just because it's a tender memory, but because my parents and sister quite literally made space for me to express my gift without judgment. They celebrated me in those moments, right? They would kind of join in with all of the classic phrases that you would hear from people in a church congregation. And it just seems to me like that occasion so powerfully embodied the ethos of our home and of our family culture, which was this idea that I had a gift that came from above for oratory, for memorization, for improvisation, for drama, and that I was going to give that gift away not only to my family in that space, but that by practicing it over and over, by making room for me then when I was 4 years old, I could eventually grow up into somebody who had a certain kind of mastery over those gifts because I'd spent hours in the laboratory of their love and care. And so this first idea that our gifts require something of us, it's a reciprocal thing. So the gift you have, the gifts with which you've been endowed, they require something of you in the here and now. But part of what your gifts require of you is that you spend time helping others hone their gifts, right? Our gifts exist in an environment where they strengthen and sharpen each other. So that's number 1. Number 2, the idea that African American literature in particular provides a helpful resource for thinking about giftedness as such, specifically because Black people for centuries were not only legally barred from receiving formal education, but also said within scientific, religious, and broader social discourse to essentially be subhuman, right? This idea that they not only lacked in gifts, but were lacking in interior life. Thomas Jefferson, for example, essentially said that neither love nor poetry was really possible in a meaningful way for the enslaved. Reading those sort of documents, especially as a graduate student many years ago, I started thinking about what ways of imagining or reimagining giftedness might emerge from a group of people that was generally characterized in this way, right? For those who are said to be nothing, to make nothing, create nothing, where their joy was seen as chaos, who were barred from learning to read or write or grow food or gather in large groups even before we were a country. I'm thinking here of the Negro Act of 1740, for example, in South Carolina. Number 3, that in thinking about certain kinds of artistic genius, though not only artistic genius, it's important to talk about both cultural institutions and interpretive communities. So this second term, interpretive communities, is one that I'm borrowing from Stanley Fish, even though it has a much longer sort of history in literary studies, right? It's a term that's often used to talk about formal assemblies of students that come together to spend time with a given text. But in this case, what I'm really thinking about is the text of one's life and who the people are around us that make it possible for us to explore the deeper meanings of that text, the hidden meanings of it, and a code and deep mystery of our own lives, right? Whose love and attention and imagination and expertise make us possible. I found when writing about some of my favorite authors, people like James Baldwin and Stevie Wonder and Nikki Giovanni and Gwendolyn Brooks in this book, that there were so often in the archives of their lives, all of these teachers and parents and mentors who helped facilitate their access to, physical study materials and writing practice at a very young age. One of my favorite examples of this in the book is Gwendolyn Brooks's father, David, who brought home a desk for her from his job at McKinley Music Factory. And this desk just became the space of her writing practice throughout childhood. Her mother, Keziah, would ask her when she was 4 and 5 years old to write plays for the kids at church who were twice her age. And her mother was also the one who introduced her to Langston Hughes. She also met James Weldon Johnson when she was a young writer, and both of them offered feedback for her poems. Both of them encouraged her to keep writing, and Hughes in particular became a major supporter of Gwendolyn Brooks throughout her early career.
The pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool, we left school, we lurk light, we strike straight, we sing sin, we thin gin, we jazz June, we die soon, soon, soon.
So David Brooks was a janitor who dreamed of being a surgeon and got his wife a bookshelf as his wedding present to her. And in that bookshelf, there were copies of Seneca and Aeschylus and Emerson. And he would read these green, hardback Harvard classics to his daughter. Gwendolyn Brooks was translating Virgil as a 15-year-old girl. And part of what I've realized, even as someone who has a PhD in English, who's written about these figures for a long time, it occurred to me while writing this book that I hadn't thought very much about this specific facet of these canonical writers' lives. Who were the people that raised them, cared for them, fed them, who looked after them and fostered their genius when they were children? And what might it mean in a book-length treatment to lift those people up by name, to lift up those cultural institutions, to shine a light on them and say, perhaps in the present, this is a useful space to devote our energy. Right? That this might be a place for real innovation and imagining and gathering for us. A source of hope and a site of profound possibility.
I was asked that question earlier, and what I can say is that I simply never thought of it in such terms. After my mother told me I was going to be the lady poet, the Lady Dunbar, I believed every word she said.
Number 4 is that there's a critical intersection, I think, between giftedness and neurodivergence that is important to not only acknowledge, but celebrate. And that whenever we're talking about genius, we're fundamentally talking about a certain kind of cognitive divergence from the very start. And that thinking of these things as in some way enmeshed actually opens up all sorts of interesting portals politically as we try to imagine future worlds. There's a section of the book called The Height of Light that's largely about autistic savants in not just African American history, but across the African diaspora in the present moment. So, they're featured there are architectural artists like Stephen Wiltshire, the 19th century composer and pianist Thomas Wiggins, Kanichuku, Tagbo Keke, a brilliant young painter. Part of what I've tried to put forward in that chapter, but also throughout the book, is a vision of genius that is capacious, but also rigorous enough to say that genius shows up in the world in ways that we are actively trained not to look for. It shows up in people and in communities where we've been told, there's nothing there worth exploring or celebrating. And so much of what I'm trying to accomplish in the text is say, let's actually sit with these documents and artworks and moments and spend the interpretive time that they demand thinking about the brilliance of this work and where it points us, what new vistas it opens up for us. Number 5, and this is a rather straightforward point in some ways, but I think it's an important one to sit with in the present. That is that anyone who is alive today on Earth either is a child or was one once. There's a part of the book where I write about the world historical intellectual June Millicent Jordan, the Black feminist poet, essayist, educator, and architect. And she writes a bit about this, the idea that children come to us from the future, but also that there's a certain vulnerability that children represent. And my sense, my reading of Jordan is that the child is a kind of universal position in this way, right? Because the childhood is a space that we've all shared, and so much of what it means, I think, for some folks to become adults is that they find ways to militate against the vulnerability that childhood demands of us, right? The vulnerability that the child embodies. And so this book is really about what it means to linger with the plenitude of the life worlds of children, what children teach us about what it might mean to imagine a better world, to take care of one another, to play and dream, and maybe not be so serious all the time, but also be serious about serious things, be serious about things that matter, like friendship and the earth and each other. So that's my 5th takeaway, that the children are the future and the present. They matter a great deal. And this is another insight from Jordan, this is the way the world begins again and again. So she says about children, right, is that they kind of restart the world over and over. And it's important to have a society that centers the well-being of children and that sees their well-being, their health, their joy as one of the central aims of any society worth defending. Thank y'all.
You're dealing with a child. You're dealing with a miracle, and you're responsible for it. And first of all, you have to give that child yourself. And the truth. And you have to trust the child. It's a very delicate. It's not true to say I haven't raised any children. I've been around children all my life. From the time in the cradle until the time they went to school. And so I know, what. It's the most delicate, strenuous endeavor in the world. It's much harder than writing a book. But it's not an endeavor where anyone can advise you, in a sense, because every child is different, and it's changing all of the time, one second to the next. The child is always discovering something, and every discovery changes him. Some of the discoveries are dangerous, some of the discoveries are beautiful, all the discoveries, from the point of view of the parent, are a little frightening. But you have to trust it. You have to trust the child. And you have to trust yourself with the child. And you cannot be too rigid about it, because the child is going to grow up into a world which you cannot imagine. All you can do is prepare him for the world in which he will live.